You may not expect it, but one of World War II's most iconic and legendary weapons is criminally underpowered in Enlisted. The FG-42 version 1 and version 2 are the pinnacle of the Axis research tree. This paratrooper weapon, its name literally being Fallschirmjägergewehr, paratrooper rifle, is adopted for main rifle use across the Axis faction, available to all but 3 main infantry classes. However, this weapon's statistics are really bad. While not unplayable, this weapon is so weak compared to the rifles of other factions that tournament and clan level play in Enlisted does not even consider bringing Axis at BR5. So what's wrong with the gun and how do we fix it? The first problem is the damage. This weapon only deals 14.4 damage. Within context, this means that you can one-shot kill every soldier, as well as any soldier who is running the Vitality perk. Realistically, the Vitality perk is one of the most important in the entire game, so you should expect to be facing it when choosing which weapon to use. A soldier's base health is 10, and with Vitality it's 13.5. But the FG-42 does more damage than that, so what's the problem? Body armour. Soviet soldiers are able to change their cosmetics and equip body armour. This should only change how the soldiers look, but for some strange reason, it actually has a gameplay effect. Body armour reduces damage taken to the torso by 10%. This means you effectively have 15 health. Now we see the issue for the FG-42. I think we can scientifically and mathematically agree that 15 is more than 14.4. This is only realistically a problem for the German gun. The American T-20, as well as the 2 Soviet rifles, the AVS-36 and ABT-40, deal 15.3 damage, or more in the case of the AVS-36 at 15.8. This means in scenarios where those weapons do face body armour, which is only really in tournament or clan games in custom matches, they are more than capable of killing Soviet soldiers in one hit. But that is not a common scenario. What is common is that about half of your games as Axis will be against Soviets. The only faction that currently has to fight Soviets in body armour has their primary weapon lose to Soviets. This is the first problem and first buff that I suggest. The FG-42s should have their damage increased to 15.3 or 15.8. This would be a buff, but not making these guns more powerful directly than their counterparts. They would be on par with them, which is fair enough. Secondly, let's look at the fire rate of these weapons. 830 rounds per minute. With a 20 round magazine, this fire rate is close to unusable. It's really difficult to deal with multiple soldiers at a time while using the FG-42, as you can't easily control how many rounds you fire, meaning you end up firing more than you need, and there is not a lot of wiggle room when you only have 20 rounds. The T-20 also holds 20, but has a much more manageable fire rate of 710. Even the Russian guns, which only have 15 rounds, have an easier time dealing with multiple enemies, as their fire rate is even lower, around 660. I believe this should be lowered for the FG-42 to improve its effectiveness, but also to match its historical rate of fire. In many different historical sources providing the specifications for this gun, the version of the FG-42 known in game as the FG-42-2 has a fire rate of 750. This would be a massive improvement to the weapon and solve the issue. Now, some people would see a fire rate nerf as just that, only a nerf, which is a fair opinion to have if you don't account for any nuance or how that affects other factors. I'll discuss the fire rate later on when I talk about another idea I have for the FG-42 rifles. For now, let's look at the third issue plaguing the FG-42. Pretty much 90% of the guns in Enlisted share an identical stat. When you are moving, your hipfire dispersion is increased. For that 90% of weapons, this is a value of 15. Some guns only have a value of 8, which is smaller, meaning they are more accurate with hipfire while moving. A great example is the M2 carbine. The FG42, for another strange Gaijin reason, has a value of 23. You can see the visual differences here, and it really makes no sense for these weapons to be less consistent in this area. I suggest simply buffing this value to 15, bringing it in line with other factions. I strongly believe that these 3 changes alone would massively improve the balance between the main select fire rifles for each faction. As it currently stands, Axis is arguably the 3rd weakest faction, if not the weakest out of the 4, at BR5. All of their weapons are undertuned, their planes are okay but not the best, and the only thing they are the best in is the King Tiger tank. With each other faction getting newer and better vehicles to counter the Tiger, it's only fair that Axis infantry weapons get some love, especially considering the FG42 and STG44 are real weapons that were made and used and were legendary technological advancements in firearms, with incredible legacies leading to the weapons we have today. There are a few small points I would like to talk about that wouldn't be directly solving the issue of balance, but to supplement the balance changes and provide a reason to actually use both versions of the FG42 found in the game. Enlisted does have a bit of a problem that some guns are very similar to each other with no reason to use the weaker version other than just to do it. It would be cool in my opinion if the FG42 version 1 was different enough to add variety and worth considering for other reasons. Let me explain. If we made the FG42-2 have 15.8 damage, 750 rate of fire, and maybe slightly increase its accuracy, it would be a fantastic option for dealing with enemies at mid to long range. What could be done for the FG42 version 1 is that we would keep the accuracy as it is now, with 15.3 damage, so it's a little less effective at range, but by giving it the historical fire rate of 900 rounds per minute, we solve 2 issues at the same time. This weapon would be wild in CQC, spraying bullets everywhere and standing out from the other select fire rifles, but most importantly standing out from the FG42 too. It would also appease to the group of people that believe a fire rate nerf is always a nerf. The version 1 would have gained 70 RPM, which is a buff. I think to further lean into this close range monster fantasy, you could slightly quicken the aim down sight speed of the version 1, making it snappier to complement the close range ability. Now, obviously these changes are not as important as the first 3 buffs that I suggested. It would just be nice if the weapons were different from each other and had a reason to use them. Being just a weaker clone of the version 2 is sad for the version 1 and makes it just a road bump in the tech tree instead of something worth considering your silver investment. The final change I would consider for both FG42s is to add a bayonet. Now, this is a bit more contentious as these guns do already have a bipod, which offers a different advantage than the bayonet of the T20 and Soviet rifles. But the FG did have a bayonet built in, and it's even modelled on the gun in game. It would just need to be turned around and added to the function of the gun. Bayonets are more useful than you might initially think. They conveniently allow you to bayonet charge without having to swap away to your axe or sword. Bayonets also make player and bot melee much more dangerous, as a bayonet poke always kills in one hit with a decent amount of range. Lastly, bayonets also give a small recoil reduction of about 3 to 5%. You could argue that we don't need a functional bayonet on the FG as they already have a bipod, but the Type A automatic has both, so why can't the FG42? Anyway, that's all I have to talk about the FG42 today. I posted a forum suggestion with even more detail than what I covered in today's video, if you feel like checking it out. If you agree with what I said, liking the post and commenting what you agree with makes it more likely for the developers to add these changes. If you do disagree though, comment what you disliked and help further the discussion of this weapon's balance. I hope you enjoyed this meta-ish discussion video, and I'll catch you next time.